The night Nora Bennett's world shattered, she ran from her own birthday party after catching her boyfriend tangled up with her best friend on the couch, where she'd left her coat. Rain-soaked and too furious to cry in public, she stumbled into a quiet Italian restaurant and locked eyes with Lucian Moretti, a man 36 years older, impossibly calm, and entirely too dangerous to trust. He should have been a stranger offering shelter. Instead, he became the collision that changed everything. Because some connections don't ask permission. They just take over, and by the time you realize what's happening, it's already too late to walk away. If you want to see how this impossible love story unfolds, stay with me until the very end. Drop a like and comment with the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The restaurant was nearly empty when Nora pushed through the door, dripping rainwater onto polished floors that probably cost more than her rent. She didn't care. Her mascara was smeared, her dress clung to her like a second skin, and her phone kept buzzing with messages she refused to read. The hostess looked up, startled, but before she could say anything, a voice cut through the quiet. "Let her sit." Nora turned toward the sound. A man sat alone at a corner table, older than anyone she'd ever looked at twice. With silver-threaded hair and a face that belonged in old movies. Sharp, composed, unreadable. He wasn't looking at her like she was a mess. He was looking at her like she was supposed to be there. The hostess hesitated, then nodded. "Of course, Mr. Moretti." Nora's legs moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the room and stopped at his table, water pooling at her feet. "I don't need charity," she said. "Good." He gestured to the chair across from him. "I don't give it." She sat. Up close, he was even more unsettling. Not because he was threatening, but because he wasn't. Everything about him was controlled. His posture, his tone, the way his fingers rested on the edge of his wine glass like he'd never rushed anything in his life. She felt like a storm that had crashed into a museum. "Lucian Moretti," he said. "Nora Bennett." "Bad night, Nora Bennett?" She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You could say that." He didn't press, didn't ask what happened, or offer empty reassurances. He just raised his hand and a waiter appeared instantly. "Bring her whatever she wants and something warm to drink." The waiter nodded and vanished. Nora stared at Lucian, trying to figure out what kind of man had that much quiet authority. "I don't even know what I want," she admitted. "Then we'll start with soup." It should have felt patronizing. It didn't. It felt like someone had finally made a decision for her after a year of making every single one herself. The soup arrived. So did bread, and wine she didn't ask for but drank anyway. Lucian didn't eat, he just watched her, and somehow it wasn't creepy. It was careful, like he was reading something in her face that she hadn't said out loud. "You ran from something," he said eventually. "Someone." She tore a piece of bread in half. "Multiple someones, actually." "Boyfriend?" "Ex-boyfriend now." She took a long sip of wine. "Caught him with my best friend, at my birthday party, in my apartment." Lucian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "How long?" "How long was he cheating? No idea. How long were we together? 2 years. How long have I felt like an idiot? About 30 minutes. You're not an idiot. You don't know me. I know you didn't stay." He leaned back slightly. "That takes more than most people have." Nora set her glass down, harder than she meant to. "You always this intense with strangers?" "Only the ones who walk into my life looking like they're about to burn the world down." She felt her mouth twitch, almost a smile. "You think I'm dangerous?" "I think you're angry. That's more dangerous than people realize." He wasn't wrong. She was furious. Not just at Derek or Claire, but at herself for not seeing it coming, for wasting 2 years on someone who couldn't even wait until she left the room. "What about you?" she asked. "What's your excuse for eating alone on a Friday night?" "I prefer it." "That's sad." "Is it?" He tilted his head. "I choose my company carefully. Most people aren't worth the time." "And I am?" "You're here, aren't you?" Nora didn't know what to say to that. So she ate her soup instead and tried to ignore the way his gaze made her skin feel warm despite her wet clothes. When she finally looked up again, he was still watching her. "What?" she asked. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone who'd cry." "I don't cry in front of people." "Why not?" "Because once you start, people think you need saving." She met his eyes. I don't. Lucian's mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close. Good. I'm terrible at saving people. Then why'd you let me sit down? Because you didn't ask permission. He leaned forward slightly. I like that. The air between them shifted. Nora felt it like a physical thing, a pull she didn't understand and couldn't explain. She should have been uncomfortable. She should have finished her soup and left. Instead, she stayed. They talked for an hour, then 2. The restaurant closed around them, and the staff didn't say a word. Lucian asked questions that weren't small talk, what she did, what she wanted, what scared her. She asked some back. He answered most of them, but not all. There were gaps in his story, things he didn't explain, and she noticed every single one. You're not going to tell me what you do, are you? She asked. I run a few businesses. That's vague. It's accurate. It's evasive. He smiled then, a real one. You're observant? Is that a problem? Not yet. She should have pushed, should have demanded a real answer, but she was exhausted and warm, and for the first time all night she didn't feel like the world was ending. I should go, she said, though she didn't move. Where? Home. Or a hotel, somewhere that isn't my apartment. I'll take you. You don't have to. I know. He stood, pulling on a coat that probably cost more than her car. But I'm going to. She let him. Because arguing felt like too much effort, and because part of her, some stupid, reckless part, wanted to see what happened next. His car was exactly what she expected. Black, sleek, expensive. The kind of vehicle that didn't belong in her neighborhood. He drove carefully, his hand steady on the wheel, and didn't ask for directions. Somehow he already knew where she lived. That should have scared her. It didn't. When they pulled up outside her building, she unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't get out. Thank you, she said, for tonight, for not being weird about it. You're welcome. She reached for the door handle. His voice stopped her. Nora. She turned back. If you need anything, he said, call me. He handed her a card. Simple, expensive paper. Just a name and a number. I don't even know you, she said. You will. It wasn't a question. It was a fact, and the certainty in his voice made her pulse kick. She took the card and got out of the car. He waited until she was inside before he drove away. Nora stood in the lobby, staring at the card in her hand, and wondered what the hell she'd just walked into. The next morning, she woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Derek wanted to explain. Claire wanted to apologize. Mutual friends wanted to know if she was okay. She deleted everything and blocked all of them. Then she stared at Lucian's card for 20 minutes before shoving it in her nightstand drawer. She wasn't going to call him. That would be insane. He was a stranger, an older stranger who probably had a wife and 3 mortgages and a very good reason for sitting alone in expensive restaurants on Friday nights. Except he didn't wear a ring. And he looked at her like she mattered. Nora groaned and pulled a pillow over her face. 3 days later, flowers arrived. Not roses. Peonies. Her favorite, though she'd never told him that. The card was unsigned, but she knew. She stared at them for an hour, then called the number. He answered on the second ring. Nora. Just her name. Like he'd been waiting. How did you know? She asked. Know what? Peonies. You mentioned them when we talked about your mother's garden. She had, briefly, in passing, and he'd remembered. That's creepy, she said. Is it working? She smiled despite herself. Maybe. Have dinner with me. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because you're... She stopped. Old? He offered. I was going to say dangerous. I'm both. His voice was calm. But I'm also interested, and you wouldn't have called if you weren't. He was right. She hated that he was right. One dinner, she said. One dinner. He picked her up Friday night in the same black car, but this time he got out and opened her door. He wore a suit that fit like it was made for him, and he smelled like cedar and something darker she couldn't name. You look beautiful, he said. She'd spent 2 hours getting ready and almost changed 3 times. Thanks. The restaurant was different from the first one. Smaller, more intimate. The kind of place where they didn't have menus because the chef decided what you ate, Lucian ordered for both of them in flawless Italian, and the waiter looked at him like he was someone important. "Do you own this place too?" Nora asked. "No." "But they know you." "I come here often." "Alone?" His eyes met hers. "Not anymore." The food was incredible. The conversation was better. He asked about her art. She'd mentioned it once, in passing, and actually listened when she talked about her work. Didn't interrupt. Didn't offer solutions. Just listened. "Why painting?" he asked. "Because it's the only thing I've ever been good at." "That's not true." "You don't know what I'm good at." "I know you're good at seeing people." He leaned back. "Most people look. You see? That's rare. How would you know?" "Because you see me." She did. She saw the way he held himself like he was always braced for impact, the way his eyes scanned every room they entered, the way he touched her, carefully, like she might break or run. "What am I seeing?" she asked. "Someone who spent a long time alone." "That's vague." "It's true. You have people. I saw how they look at you." Respect isn't the same as connection. And what are we? She shouldn't have asked, but the wine had loosened her tongue, and she wanted to know. "I don't know yet." He reached across the table and took her hand. "But I'd like to find out." His thumb brushed over her knuckles. It was the first time he'd really touched her, and it felt like electricity. She should have pulled away. She didn't. After dinner, he drove her home again, but this time he walked her to her door. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "You're very persistent." "I know what I want." "And what's that?" "You." The word hung in the air between them, heavy, undeniable. "This is crazy," she said. "You know that, right?" "Probably." "You're twice my age." 36 years older, not quite double." "That doesn't make it better." "Does it matter?" It should have. It absolutely should have. But standing there with his hand on her waist and his eyes on her mouth, she couldn't remember why. "One more dinner," she said. "One more." But they both knew it was already more than that. Mafia. The next 2 weeks blurred together. Lucian called every day, sent flowers, showed up at her studio with coffee exactly how she liked it, even though she'd never told him. "You're going to make me paranoid," she said, accepting the cup. "Why?" "Because you know things you shouldn't. I pay attention. It's unnerving." "Should I stop?" "No." She took a sip. Perfect. Of course it was perfect. "But maybe slow down." He didn't. He took her to art galleries and symphony performances, walked through parks at midnight because she said she liked the quiet, sat in her studio and watched her paint without saying a word, like her process was something sacred. And he touched her. Not aggressively, not constantly, but enough that she started craving it. A hand on her back, fingers brushing her hair behind her ear, his palm against her cheek when he said goodnight. "You're killing me," she told him one night. They were standing outside her building again. He just walked her up, like he always did. "How so?" "You know how." His mouth curved. "Say it." "No." "Nora." She grabbed his tie and pulled him down. The kiss was supposed to prove a point. Instead, it proved that she'd been lying to herself for 2 weeks. He kissed her back slowly, thoroughly, like he had all the time in the world. His hand stayed on her waist, controlled, even though she could feel the tension in his body. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Inside," she said. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because when I take you to bed, I'm not leaving." He tucked her hair behind her ear. "And you're not ready for that." "Don't tell me what I'm ready for." "Then tell me you know what you're getting into." She froze. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not a good man, Nora. I'm not safe. And once you're mine, I won't let you go." The words should have terrified her. Instead, they sent heat straight through her stomach. "I'm not afraid of you," she said. "You should be." "Why?" He cupped her face in both hands. "Because I've already decided. You just haven't realized it yet." Then he kissed her forehead and left. Nora stood in the hallway, shaking, and knew she was already in too deep. The warning came 3 days later. She was at a coffee shop near her studio when a woman sat down across from her. Mid-40s, elegant, with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Nora Bennett? Nora looked up. Do I know you? No, but I know Lucian Moretti. Every instinct told her to leave. She stayed. Who are you? Someone who's watched him ruin lives for 30 years. The woman leaned forward. Whatever he's told you, it's a lie. He hasn't told me anything. Exactly. The woman slid a business card across the table. When you're ready to know the truth, call me. Then she left. Nora stared at the card, picked it up, put it down, picked it up again. That night, Lucian took her to dinner at his place, a penthouse that overlooked the entire city. It was stunning, cold, nothing personal anywhere except a single photograph on his desk. Who's that? She asked, pointing. His expression shuddered. Someone I lost. Family? In a way. He didn't elaborate, and for the first time she felt the distance between them like a physical wall. What do you do, Lucian? She asked. Really? Why are you asking now? Because someone told me to. His jaw tightened. Who? I don't know. A woman. She said you ruin lives. Silence. Then Lucian crossed the room and took her face in his hands. I'm not a good man, he said quietly. I've done things I can't take back. Hurt people who deserved it, and some who didn't. Built an empire on fear and loyalty and violence. His thumb brushed her cheek. But I have never lied to you, and I never will. What do you want from me? Everything. Her breath caught. I want you in my bed, in my life, in every room I walk into. His voice was rough. I want you to choose me even though you shouldn't, and I'll give you everything I have in return. You don't even know me. I know enough. This is insane. I know. I should leave, but you won't. He was right. She wouldn't. Because despite every warning bell, every rational thought, every reason this was a terrible idea, she wanted him to. So she kissed him. And this time he didn't pull away. He backed her against the window, his hands in her hair, his mouth on hers like he'd been starving for it. She pulled at his shirt, heard buttons scatter, didn't care. Bedroom, she gasped. Here. Someone could see. Let them. He lifted her, and she wrapped her legs around him, and the city glittered below them like 1,000 watching eyes. Later, lying in his bed with his hand tracing patterns on her spine, she finally asked, What happens now? Now you're mine. Just like that? Just like that. She should have argued, should have demanded definitions and boundaries and sanity. Instead, she fell asleep in his arms and dreamed of a future she couldn't see but wanted anyway. And somewhere in the dark, trouble was already coming. The first morning after felt surreal. Nora woke up tangled in sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, in a bed the size of her entire bedroom, with Lucien's arm draped across her waist like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, turning everything gold, and for a moment she forgot why this was complicated. Then she remembered the woman in the coffee shop, the warning, the careful way Lucian had avoided answering her question about what he actually did. She shifted, trying to slip out without waking him. His arm tightened. Where are you going? His voice was rough with sleep. Home. I need to shower, change clothes, think. Think about what? About whether I just made a massive mistake. He rolled onto his back, pulling her with him so she ended up sprawled across his chest. His hand slid into her hair. Did it feel like a mistake? No. She pushed herself up to look at him. That's the problem. Why is that a problem? Because I don't know you. Not really, and you won't tell me anything real. I told you I'm not a good man. That's not an answer. That's a warning label. His mouth twitched. What do you want to know? Everything. What you do. Who you are. Why that woman thinks you're dangerous. I am dangerous. To me? Never to you. His hand cupped her face. But to people who threaten what's mine? Yes. I'm not yours. You are. You just haven't accepted it yet. She should have been angry, should have pulled away and demanded he stop talking like he owned her. Instead, her stomach flipped. You're unbelievable, she muttered. I'm honest. He sat up, bringing her with him. I run several businesses, some legitimate, some less so. I have people who work for me, people who owe me, and people who'd like to see me dead. I've built everything I have on power and control, and I don't apologize for it. That's not enough? He traced her jawline. I know, but it's all I can give you right now. Why? Because the more you know, the more danger you're in. From who? From everyone. He kissed her forehead. Let me protect you. I don't need protection. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. She wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him she'd been taking care of herself for 24 years and didn't need some controlling older man deciding what was best for her. But the way he looked at her, like she was something precious he'd found in the wreckage, made the words stick in her throat. I need coffee, she said instead. He smiled. I'll make it. Watching Lucian Moretti make coffee in his pristine kitchen wearing nothing but pajama pants was possibly the most surreal experience of her life. He moved with the same careful precision he brought to everything else, measuring grounds and setting the timer like it mattered. You're staring, he said without turning around. You're half naked in a kitchen. What did you expect? Fair point. He poured 2 cups and handed her one. What are you doing today? Working. I have 3 commissions due next week. Cancel them. She nearly choked on her coffee. Excuse me? Come to the coast with me. I have a house there. We can leave this afternoon. I'm not canceling my work to run off with you. Why not? Because I have responsibilities, bills, a career. I'll cover your bills. No. His eyebrows lifted. No? I'm not your kept woman, Lucian. I'm not trying to keep you. I'm trying to spend time with you. Then spend time with me here, in the real world, where I have a life. Something flickered across his face. Not anger. Something softer. You're right. I'm sorry. The apology surprised her more than the invitation had. Really? I'm not used to people saying no. He set his cup down. It's refreshing. You need better people in your life. I have you now. The certainty in his voice made her chest tight. They spent the rest of the morning tangled together, talking about nothing important. He told her about a restaurant he wanted to take her to. She told him about the gallery show she'd been invited to participate in. He listened like every word mattered, and she caught herself forgetting to be careful. When she finally left to go home and change, he walked her to his car and opened the door like she was fragile. I'll see you tonight, he said. You don't know my schedule? Then tell me when you're free. You're very pushy. I prefer determined. He kissed her, slow and deep, right there on the street where anyone could see. 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up. She should have said no, should have established boundaries and space and some semblance of control over the situation. Fine, she said. 7. His smile was dangerous. The next few days fell into a rhythm that felt both natural and terrifying. Lucian showed up every evening, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with food, always with that steady presence that made her forget to be nervous. He asked about her work, remembered details from conversations they'd had days ago, and touched her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. But there were gaps. Moments when his phone would ring and his entire demeanor would change. Times when he'd get a text and his jaw would tighten. He never answered calls in front of her, and when he came back, he'd kiss her like he was trying to erase whatever he'd just dealt with. Who was that? She asked one night after he'd spent 20 minutes on the phone in the hallway. Work. At 10 p.m.? My work doesn't keep regular hours. Lucian, it's handled. He pulled her against him. Forget about it. But she couldn't, because every time his phone rang, she saw the woman from the coffee shop in her mind, heard the warning, felt the weight of all the things he wasn't saying. Still, she stayed, because being with him felt like finally breathing after years of holding her breath. 2 weeks in, he took her to a charity gala, the kind of event she'd only ever seen in movies, with designer gowns and champagne fountains and people who moved through the world like they owned it. I don't belong here, she whispered as they walked in. You belong wherever I am. His hand was firm on her lower back. And everyone here knows it. He wasn't wrong. The moment they entered, heads turned. People approached with careful smiles and watchful eyes. They greeted Lucian with respect that bordered on fear, and when he introduced her, they looked at her like she was a puzzle they needed to solve. Lucian, darling, a woman in a red dress glided over, her smile sharp. I didn't know you were seeing anyone. Now you do. His tone was pleasant. His eyes weren't. She's very young. She's right here. Nora said, her voice colder than she intended. The woman's eyebrows lifted. Of course. Forgive me. I'm Diane Castellano, an old friend of Lucian's. Friend is generous, Lucian said. Diane laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Still sharp as ever, she turned to Nora. Be careful with this one. He has a habit of collecting beautiful things and forgetting they break. Then she walked away. Who was that? Nora asked. No one important. She didn't seem like no one. She's a reminder of why I don't do these events anymore. He guided her toward the bar. Let's get you a drink. The night stretched on. Lucian introduced her to business associates and politicians and people whose names she recognized from news headlines. He kept her close, his hand never leaving her waist, and she started to understand the weight he carried. These people didn't just respect him, they feared him. And the way they looked at her, like she was a weakness they could exploit, made her skin crawl. Can we leave? She asked after the third person made a veiled comment about her age. Yes. He didn't hesitate. Let's go. They were halfway to the exit when a man stepped into their path, tall, dark-haired, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Moretti, leaving so soon? Lucian's entire body went rigid. Vincent, aren't you going to introduce me to your companion? No. Vincent's smile widened. That's rude. I'm Vincent Calabrese. And you are? Nora felt Lucian's hand tighten on her waist. Something in the air shifted, turned sharp and dangerous. We're leaving, Lucian said. Of course. Wouldn't want to keep the lady waiting. Vincent's eyes locked on Nora. Pleasure to meet you. I'm sure we'll see each other again. Lucian practically dragged her out of the building. His face was stone, his jaw clenched so tight she thought it might crack. Who was that? She asked once they were in the car. A problem. Lucian. Not tonight, Nora. He started the engine, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Please. She'd never heard him say please before. It shut her up faster than anything else could have. He drove in silence, taking turns too fast, his breathing controlled but rough. When they reached her building, he didn't turn off the engine. You're not coming up? She asked. Not tonight. What's wrong? Nothing you need to worry about. Stop doing that. Stop shutting me out. I'm protecting you. From what? From me. The words came out harder than he meant them to. He closed his eyes, took a breath. From the world I live in. From the people who'd use you to get to me. Like Vincent? Especially like Vincent. Then tell me who he is. Help me understand. He's someone who wants what I have. Someone who wouldn't hesitate to hurt you if he thought it would give him an advantage. Lucian turned to look at her, and for the first time she saw real fear in his eyes. I can't let that happen. So what? You're just going to push me away every time something gets complicated? If it keeps you safe? I don't want safe. I want you. You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me. She reached for his hand. Stop treating me like I'm fragile. I'm not. He stared at their joined hands for a long moment. Then he brought hers to his lips. Tomorrow, he said quietly. I'll tell you everything tomorrow. Promise? I promise. He kissed her then, desperate and rough, like he was memorizing the taste of her. When he finally pulled back, they were both shaking. Go inside, he said. Come with me. I can't. Not tonight. She wanted to argue, but something in his expression stopped her. Tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow. She got out of the car and watched him drive away, and tried to ignore the cold feeling spreading through her chest. Tomorrow came with a dozen white roses and a note in Lucian's precise handwriting. My office, 2 p.m. I'll send a car. No signature, no explanation. Just an address she'd never been to and a time that gave her 4 hours to spiral. The car arrived exactly at 1:30. Black, expensive, with a driver who opened her door without a word. They drove to a building in the financial district, all glass and steel and intimidation. Security waved them through. An elevator took her to the top floor, and when the doors opened, she stepped into a space that looked more like a fortress than an office. Lucian was waiting. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city like he owned it. You came, he said without turning around. You asked me to. You could have said no. I'm tired of saying no to you. He turned then, and she saw the exhaustion in his face. like he hadn't slept, like something had been eating at him all night. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the couch. She sat. He poured her water she didn't ask for, then settled into the chair across from her, close enough to touch, far enough to feel deliberate. "I told you I run businesses," he started. "That's true. I have restaurants, real estate, investments, all legitimate, all profitable. But that's not where the real money comes from." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I run a network. People come to me when they need things done, problem solved, debts collected, protection provided. You're talking about organized crime. I'm talking about power." His eyes met hers. "Legal, illegal, it's all the same game, just different rules." Her stomach twisted. "So everything they say about you is probably true." He didn't flinch. "I've hurt people, threatened people, made choices that would sicken you if you knew the details." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you asked, and because I won't lie to you." He reached for her hand. She let him take it. "I'm not a good man, Nora. I never have been. But I'm trying to be better, for you. You can't just change because of me." "Why not?" "Because that's not how it works. You can't build a life on someone else." "Then build it with me." His grip tightened. "Stay. Choose this. Choose me, and I'll give you everything." "I don't want everything. I want you to be honest." "I am being honest." "No, you're giving me the sanitized version, the one where you're rough around the edges but fundamentally redeemable." She pulled her hand back. "Tell me something real, something that scares you." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared you'll realize what I am and leave. I'm scared Vincent or someone like him will find a way to hurt you. I'm scared I'll pull you so deep into my world that you'll drown in it." He looked up. "And I'm terrified that I'm selfish enough not to care." The honesty in his voice cracked something in her chest. "I don't scare easy," she said. "I know. That's what terrifies me most." She stood up, crossed the space between them, and kissed him. Not gentle, not careful, just real. "I'm choosing you," she said against his mouth. "Flaws and all, but you have to let me in, all the way. No more half-truth. It's dangerous. I don't care." "You should." Too late. He pulled her into his lap, buried his face in her neck, and held on like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. "I'll try," he said finally. "To be better. To let you in. To deserve you." "You already do." "Liar," she smiled. "Maybe, but I'm your liar now." His laugh was rough and surprised and perfect. They stayed like that for a while, wrapped around each other in the middle of his cold office, and Nora let herself believe it could actually work. The next 3 weeks were the best of her life. Lucian opened up in small, careful increments, told her about his childhood in Brooklyn, the father who taught him violence was currency, the choices that led him here. He introduced her to Marco, his right hand, who looked at her like she was a bomb that might go off. Took her to places he'd never brought anyone else. And he touched her constantly, in restaurants, in his car, in her tiny studio while she painted, like he needed the reminder that she was real. "You're distracting me," she said one afternoon, swatting at his hand as it slid up her thigh. "Good. I have a deadline. Take a break. You're terrible for my productivity. I'll make it up to you." His mouth found her neck. She lasted another 30 seconds before abandoning her canvas entirely. Later, lying on the floor of her studio with paint smudged on her shoulder and his shirt unbuttoned, she asked the question that had been nagging at her for days. "What happened with Vincent?" His hand stilled on her hip. "Why are you asking?" "Because you've been tense every time your phone rings. Because Marco keeps looking at me like I'm a problem he needs to solve. Because you're hiding something." "I'm not hiding. Lucian." He sighed, sat up, ran a hand through his hair. "He's making a move, trying to take territory that's mine. We've been handling it." "Handling it how?" "You don't want to know." "Yes, I do. Nora, you promised me honesty." He looked at her for a long moment, then he nodded. "We sent a message, made it clear what happens when you cross certain lines. It worked." He's backed off. "What kind of message?" "The permanent kind." Her stomach dropped. "You killed someone." "I didn't." But people who work for me did. He met her eyes. Does that change things? It should have. She should have been horrified. Should have run. I don't know, she said honestly. That's fair. Is it always going to be like this? Violence and threats and people trying to hurt you? Probably. And you're okay with that? I've been okay with it for 30 years, but now, he cupped her face. Now I'm starting to think there might be something better. Like what? Like a life where I don't have to look over my shoulder, where I can take you to dinner without calculating exit routes, where I'm not constantly terrified someone's going to use you to destroy me. Is that even possible? I don't know, but I want to try. She kissed him, soft and slow and full of all the things she couldn't say. Then try, she whispered. He pulled her close and made a promise neither of them knew if he could keep. That night, everything shattered. Nora was alone in her apartment when someone knocked on her door. She assumed it was Lucian. He'd said he'd be late, but would come by, and opened it without checking. It wasn't Lucian. Two men stood in her hallway, both large, both armed. Nora Bennett? One of them asked. She tried to slam the door. A hand caught it. Mr. Calabrese would like a word. Her blood went cold. I don't know who that is. Yes, you do. The man smiled. Come quietly, or we'll make this difficult. She thought about screaming, about running, about all the things Lucian had probably told Marco to teach her, and she'd been too stubborn to learn. Then she thought about what would happen if she fought and lost. Fine, she said. Let me get my coat. No coat, now. They walked her to a car, put her in the back seat, drove for 20 minutes while her heart hammered and her mind raced. When they finally stopped, they were at a warehouse near the docks. Empty, dark, the kind of place where people disappeared. Vincent was waiting inside. Nora, he said warmly, like they were old friends. Thank you for coming. I didn't have a choice. Of course you did. You could have screamed, made a scene, but you didn't. Which tells me you're smarter than Lucian gives you credit for. What do you want? To talk. To explain something your boyfriend has been too selfish to tell you. He gestured to a chair. Sit. She sat because standing felt too vulnerable. Lucian Moretti is a dying breed, Vincent continued. Old-fashioned, honorable in his own twisted way. He thinks loyalty and fear are enough, but they're not. Not anymore. What does this have to do with me? Everything. You're his weakness. The one thing he cares about more than power. Vincent leaned against a crate. Which makes you valuable. I'm not valuable. I'm a painter. I don't have money or connections or anything you could possibly want. You have him. Vincent smiled. And that's enough. The door crashed open. Lucian stood in the entrance, flanked by Marco and 3 other men. His face was murder. Get away from her, he said quietly. Or what? Vincent spread his hands. You'll start a war over some girl? Yes. The single word hung in the air like a blade. Vincent's smile faded. You're bluffing. Try me. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Vincent nodded to his men. Let her go. Nora stood on shaking legs, crossed the space between her and Lucian. His hand closed around hers like a vice. This isn't over, Vincent said. Yes, Lucian replied. It is. They left, got in the car, drove in absolute silence. When they finally reached Lucian's penthouse, he pulled her inside and locked every door. Then he turned to face her, and she saw the terror beneath his fury. Are you hurt? He asked. No. Did they touch you? No. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. It's absolutely my fault. He paced like a caged animal. I knew this could happen. I knew, and I let you get close anyway. Lucian, you need to leave. Tonight. I'll set you up somewhere safe, somewhere he can't find you. I'm not leaving. You have to. No. She grabbed his arm, forced him to look at her. I'm not running. You don't understand. This is just the beginning. He'll keep coming. He'll use you to tear me apart. Then we fight back. I can't risk you. You don't get to decide that. This is my choice, and I choose to stay. He stared at her like she'd gone insane. Why? He demanded. Why would you stay? Because I love you, you idiot. The words fell out before she could stop them. hung in the air between them like something fragile and impossible. Lucian went absolutely still. You, love you. I love you, even though you're controlling and secretive and part of a world that just kidnapped me. I love you anyway. Tears burned her eyes. So stop trying to push me away and let me help. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides and kissed her like she was oxygen, desperate, consuming, absolute. I love you, he said against her mouth. I love you, and it's going to get us both killed. Probably. This is insane. I know. He kissed her again and again, and when he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. Okay, he said. Okay. We do this together. Together. But you have to trust me completely. I do. And you have to let me keep you safe. Within reason. His mouth twitched despite everything. You're going to be the death of me. That's the plan. He held her through the night, and they both pretended they weren't terrified of what came next. The safe house was a loft in a building Lucian owned under a name that didn't exist on any public record. Industrial windows, exposed brick, enough security cameras to film a documentary. Marco swept it twice before letting them in, then posted 2 men outside and another in the lobby. Overkill much? Nora asked, dropping her overnight bag on the couch. There's no such thing as overkill when Vincent's involved. Lucian locked the door, tested it twice. Not anymore. She watched him move through the space, checking windows, adjusting blinds, his shoulders tight with tension that hadn't eased since the warehouse. He'd barely looked at her during the drive over, just kept his hand locked around hers like he was afraid she'd vanish. You need to sleep, she said. I'm fine. You're exhausted. I said I'm fine. The words came out harder than he meant them to. He stopped, closed his eyes. Sorry, I know. She crossed to him, slid her arms around his waist from behind. But you can't protect me if you collapse. I'm not going to collapse. Lucian. He turned in her arms, and she saw the fear still carved into his face, the guilt. I should have seen this coming, he said quietly. Should have moved faster. Been smarter. You couldn't have known. Yes, I could have. Vincent's been circling for months. I knew he'd eventually make a move. I just didn't think he'd be stupid enough to touch you. But he didn't hurt me. You got there in time. Barely. His hands came up to frame her face. If Marco hadn't been tracking your phone, if we'd been 10 minutes later, but you weren't. She pressed her forehead to his. I'm here. I'm safe. And I'm not going anywhere. He kissed her then, soft and desperate, like he was trying to convince himself she was real. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. You said you loved me, he whispered. I do. That was the worst possible timing. Probably. She smiled despite everything. But I meant it. I know. He tucked her hair behind her ear. That's what scares me. Why? Because now I have something to lose. The words settled between them, heavy and true. She wanted to tell him it would be okay, that they'd figure it out, that love was enough. But she was tired of empty promises. So what do we do? She asked instead. We end this, permanently. How? I'm working on it. He stepped back, ran a hand through his hair. Marco's reaching out to people who owe me favors. We're building a case against Vincent, real evidence, the kind that puts him away for decades. And if that doesn't work? His jaw tightened. Then we handle it another way. She knew what that meant, knew it should bother her more than it did. I don't want you to become someone you're not because of me, she said. I've always been this person, Nora. You're just the first one who's made me want to change. He pulled her close again. But changing takes time. And right now, keeping you alive is more important than redemption. She wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him violence wasn't the answer, but she'd seen Vincent's eyes in that warehouse. Had felt the casual malice rolling off him like heat. Okay, she said finally. We do it your way, but promise me something. Anything. Don't shut me out. Don't make decisions without telling me. I need to know what's happening. Even the ugly parts? Especially those. He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Deal. They spent the rest of the night tangled together on the couch, neither of them sleeping, both of them pretending they weren't terrified of what came next. Morning arrived with Marco and coffee. He set both cups on the table, then settled into the chair across from them with the casual ease of someone used to being around dangerous situations. "We got something," he said without preamble. Lucian sat up straighter. "What?" "Vincent's moving product through the port. Big shipment coming in Thursday. If we can tie him to it, the feds will have enough to move." Lucian's eyes sharpened. "How solid is the intel?" "Solid enough? One of his guys is talking, wants immunity." "Who?" "Does it matter?" "It matters if he's playing both sides." Marco shrugged. "He's scared. Vincent killed his brother last month over a short count. He wants out." "And you trust him?" "I trust that he's more afraid of Vincent than he is of us. That's enough." Nora listened to them talk, cataloging the casual way they discussed federal cases and murder like it was weather. Part of her wanted to be shocked. The rest was just relieved they had a plan. "What do you need from me?" Lucian asked. "Stay here. Keep her safe. Let me handle the details." Marco's eyes flicked to Nora. "No offense, but you're a distraction right now." "None taken," Nora said. Lucian looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. "Fine. But I want updates every 2 hours." "You'll get them." Marco stood. "And Lucian, don't do anything stupid. When have I ever done anything stupid? You want the list alphabetically or chronologically?" Despite everything, Lucian smiled. "Get out of here." Marco left. The silence he left behind felt thick and strange. "He's protective of you," Nora said. "He's been with me for 15 years, saved my life twice. I trust him more than I trust myself." "That's a low bar." "Fair point." He pulled her back against his chest. "You doing okay? Define okay. Not having a breakdown, not running for the door, not realizing this was a massive mistake." "I'm fine. Terrified, but fine." "That's honest." "I'm trying this new thing where I don't lie to you." "How's that working out?" "Jury's still out." He laughed, and the sound was so unexpected it made her chest ache. The next 3 days were strange. They lived in the loft like it was a different world, cooking meals, watching movies, pretending the armed guards outside weren't there. Lucian taught her to play poker and lost spectacularly because he couldn't bluff worth a damn when she was involved. She painted on canvas Marco brought, losing herself in color and line, while Lucian worked on his laptop, occasionally looking up just to make sure she was still there. "You keep doing that," she said on the 3rd day. "Doing what?" "Checking on me, like I might disappear." "You might." "I won't." "You should." He set his laptop aside. "This isn't a life, Nora. Hiding in a safe house, armed guards, constantly looking over your shoulder. It's temporary." "Is it?" He stood, paced to the window. "What happens after Vincent?" "There'll be someone else. There always is." "Then we deal with them too." "For how long? A year? 5 years? Forever?" She set down her brush. "What are you really asking?" "I'm asking if you've thought about what happens next, after the crisis passes, when it's just us and the reality of what my life actually is. Have you?" "I think about it constantly." He turned to face her. "I think about you in this world, and it terrifies me. You're too good for it, too bright. And eventually it's going to dim that light, and I'll hate myself for it. Stop deciding what I can handle. I'm trying to be realistic." "No, you're trying to push me away before I can leave on my own." She stood, crossed to him. "I'm not her." He went very still. "What?" "Whoever you lost. The person in that picture on your desk. I'm not her." His face shuddered. "That's not—" "Yes, it is. You're terrified I'm going to get hurt because someone you cared about already did. But I'm not fragile, Lucian, and I'm not going anywhere." "You don't know what you're talking about." "Then tell me. Who was she?" For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he sank onto the couch, suddenly looking every one of his 60 years. "Her name was Elena," he said quietly. "My sister. Younger by 5 years. Smarter than me. Kinder." Nora sat beside him, stayed quiet. She wanted out of the life our father built, wanted to go to college, become a teacher, so I helped her, paid for school, set her up in an apartment across town where nobody knew who she was. His hands clenched. "Vincent found out, saw her as leverage, and I thought I could protect her. Thought if I kept her separate from my world, she'd be safe." "What happened?" He took her, used her to try to force me to give up territory. I refused because I thought calling his bluff was the smart play. Thought he wouldn't actually hurt her because it would start a war he couldn't win. His voice cracked. I was wrong. Nora's throat tightened. Lucian? They found her 3 days later. She'd been dead for 2. He looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was raw and terrible. So yes, I'm terrified. Because I've already lost someone I love to this world. And I won't survive losing you too. She didn't have words for that, so she just pulled him close and let him hold on. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. It was 12 years ago. I thought I'd moved past it. Then you walked into my life, and suddenly I'm right back there, terrified and powerless and watching everything fall apart. But it's not falling apart. We're still here. We're fighting back. For now. Then now is enough. She pulled back to look at him. I can't promise you nothing bad will happen. I can't promise I won't get hurt or scared or that this won't be messy and complicated. But I can promise I'm not giving up, not on you, not on us. He searched her face like he was looking for a lie. Found none. You're too stubborn for your own good, he said. Pot, meat kettle. His mouth twitched. Then he kissed her, slow and deep and full of everything he couldn't say. When they finally broke apart, his phone was ringing. Marco. Talk to me, Lucian said, putting it on speaker. We have a problem. Nora's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The informant's missing. Hasn't checked in for 8 hours. I've got people looking, but Vincent got to him. Probably. Which means he knows we're building a case. Yeah. Lucian closed his eyes. What about the shipment? Still happening. Thursday, 0300. But without our guy, we've got no witness. No way to tie Vincent directly to it. Then we tie him another way. How? I'll be there myself. Get photos, documentation, whatever the feds need. That's insane, Marco said. If he sees you, he won't. Lucian. I'm not asking, Marco. Set it up. He hung up before Marco could argue. Nora stared at him. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You just told me you were trying to be smarter. How is walking into the middle of Vincent's operation smart? It's the only way to end this without more bloodshed. Or it gets you killed. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know how to stay invisible. Not when you're this angry, you don't. She grabbed his arm. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. Vincent took Elena from me. I won't let him take you too. So you're going to get yourself killed instead? That's your plan? I'm going to end this, one way or another. And what am I supposed to do? Just sit here and wait to find out if you're alive? Yes. No. She stepped in front of him. If you're going, I'm going with you. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that. The hell I don't. You're staying here where it's safe. Safe? She laughed, sharp and bitter. I was safe 3 days ago, and look how that turned out. At least if I'm with you, I know what's happening. Nora, don't. She cut him off. Don't patronize me. Don't tell me you're protecting me. You want to end this? Fine. But we do it together, or not at all. They stared at each other, locked in a battle of wills neither wanted to lose. You're impossible, he said finally. I learned from the best. If you come, you follow my lead. Exactly. No questions. No arguments. Deal. I mean it, Nora. This isn't a negotiation. You do what I say when I say it, or I'll have Marco drag you back here himself. Understood. He looked like he wanted to argue more. Instead, he pulled her close and buried his face in her hair. I'm going to regret this, he muttered. Probably. You're going to give me a heart attack. That's the plan. Despite everything, he smiled. Thursday arrived cold and dark. Marco picked them up at 2 a.m., his face grim when he saw Nora in the back seat. You're bringing her? He asked Lucian. Don't start. This is a terrible idea. Noted. If something happens, it won't. Marco looked at Nora. You know he's lying, right? Completely. And you're still going? Yep. He shook his head. You two deserve each other. They drove in silence to the port. The area was industrial, dark, full of shipping containers and shadows. Marco parked 3 blocks away, killed the engine. The shipment's coming in at Pier 7, he said. Vincent's crew should arrive around 02:45 to move it. I've got 2 guys positioned with long-range cameras. You just need to get close enough to confirm Vincent's there, then get out. Simple, Lucian said. Nothing about this is simple. They approached on foot, staying low, using the containers for cover. Nora's heart hammered so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Lucian kept her behind him, one hand on her wrist, guiding her through the maze of metal and darkness. When they reached Pier 7, they could see the ship, massive, dark, already being unloaded by men who moved with military precision. There, Lucian whispered, pointing. Vincent stood near a black SUV, watching his crew work. Even from a distance, Nora could see the satisfaction on his face. Marco, you getting this? Lucian spoke into a small radio. Copy. We got him. Good. We're moving out. They'd just started to retreat when one of Vincent's men turned, flashlight sweeping the area. The beam passed over them, paused, swung back. Run, Lucian said. They ran. Shouts erupted behind them. The flashlight became 3, then 6. Footsteps pounded against concrete. Lucian pulled her between containers, changing direction twice, his hand locked around hers. She could hear men calling to each other, coordinating, closing in. This way, he hissed, pulling her left. They emerged into an open area. Too open. No cover. A gunshot cracked the air. Lucian shoved her behind a container, his body covering hers. Stay down. Lucian, stay down. More shots. Close enough that she could hear them ricochet off metal. Lucian pulled a gun from his jacket. When had he brought a gun? And returned fire. Marco, we're pinned at Section D, he said into the radio. Need extraction now. 2 minutes out. We don't have 2 minutes. Nora's whole body shook. This was real. This was actually happening. They were going to die here, in a shipping yard, because she'd insisted on coming. I'm sorry, she said. Lucian looked at her like she was insane. For what? For making you bring me. For being stubborn. Kissed her. Hard and fast and completely inappropriate given the circumstances. Shut up, he said against her mouth. You're not dying. I'm not dying. We're getting out of here. How? Trust me. The shooting stopped. Voices called out in the darkness. Moretti, we know you're here. Vincent's voice, calm, almost amused. Come out and we'll make this quick. Or hide, and I'll make it last. Lucian's jaw clenched. He looked at Nora and she saw him calculating, weighing options, coming to a decision she wasn't going to like. Don't, she whispered. I have to. No, Marco, he said into the radio. When I move, get her out. Lucian, no. I love you, he said. Then he stood up and walked into the open. Let her go, Vincent. This is between us. Nora's heart stopped. Vincent stepped forward, gun in hand. How noble. The great Lucian Moretti, sacrificing himself for his girl. She's not part of this. She became part of it the moment you decided she mattered. Vincent smiled. Which makes her perfect leverage. Wrong. Lucian's voice was ice. Which makes her the reason you're about to die. Lights flooded the pier. Sirens wailed. Federal agents poured in from every direction. Vincent's face went white. What? Did you really think I'd come here without insurance? Lucian's smile was sharp and vicious. You're under arrest, Vincent. For trafficking. For Elena. For everything. And I made sure they had enough evidence to bury you. Vincent raised his gun. Lucian was faster. The shot echoed across the water. Vincent fell. Agents swarmed. Marco appeared, pulling Nora to her feet. She watched them cuff Vincent, still alive, still conscious, but bleeding, and finished. Lucian walked back to her, handed his gun to an agent, then pulled her into his arms. You set him up, she said. I ended it. You used yourself as bait. I protected you. You almost died. But I didn't. He pulled back to look at her. It's over, Nora. He's done. We're free. She wanted to yell at him, wanted to hit him for scaring her. Instead, she kissed him until neither of them could breathe. Don't ever do that again, she said. No promises. Lucian. Fine. I'll try. It was the best she was going to get. They spent the next 6 hours giving statements to federal agents who looked at Lucian like they couldn't decide if he was a witness or a criminal. Marco handled most of it. His lawyer speak smooth and impenetrable. By the time they were cleared to leave, the sun was rising. "Take me home," Nora said. "My place or yours?" "Ours." He looked at her, surprise and hope warring in his eyes. "Ours? I'm tired of having 2 apartments, tired of packing bags, tired of pretending this isn't permanent." She took his hand. "Move in with me, or I'll move in with you. I don't care which, but I want to wake up next to you every morning without having to plan it." "You're serious?" "Completely. I'm 60 years old. I have enemies, baggage, a past that would make most people run. Good thing I'm not most people." He laughed, and it sounded like relief. "No, you're really not." They went to his penthouse. She'd expected celebration. Instead, he was quiet, thoughtful, standing by the window watching the city wake up like he was seeing it for the first time. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. That's the problem." "I don't understand. I've spent 30 years building an empire on fear, convinced myself it was necessary, that power was the only thing that mattered." He turned to face her. But standing in that pier watching Vincent fall, all I could think was how empty it felt, how none of it mattered compared to keeping you safe. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I want out. Not all at once. I can't just walk away without consequences. But I want to build something different, something clean, something I won't be ashamed to have you part of." "You're serious?" "I'm serious. I've already started. Legitimate investments, real estate. Marco's been helping me transition assets for months." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to have something real to show you first. Proof that I could be the man you deserve." She crossed to him, took his face in her hands. "You already are." "I'm really not." "Then become him." "I'll wait." "What if it takes years?" "Then it takes years." "What if I fail?" "Then we figure it out together." He kissed her, and it tasted like promises and hope and new beginnings. "I don't deserve you," he said. "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. There are worse fates." "Name one." He smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, it reached his eyes. "I can't." They stood there as the sun climbed higher, burning away the darkness, and Nora let herself believe they'd actually made it through. The first week after Vincent's arrest felt like living in a dream someone else was having. Nora moved into Lucian's penthouse with 2 suitcases and a car full of canvases, half expecting reality to reassert itself and tear everything apart. Instead, Lucian cleared out an entire room for her studio, had natural light fixtures installed overnight, and stood in the doorway watching her unpack supplies like she'd just handed him something precious. "You're staring again," she said, arranging brushes by size. "I'm making sure you're real." "Still real. Check back in an hour." He crossed the room, wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I will." She leaned into him, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her spine. This was supposed to be the part where they lived happily ever after, where the danger passed and everything fell into place. But she could feel the tension still coiled in his shoulders, the way his eyes tracked movement outside the windows, the careful way he'd positioned her studio so she'd never be visible from the street. "You're not sleeping," she said. "I'm sleeping fine." Liar. His chest moved with silent laughter. "I'm sleeping better than I have in years." "That's not the same as sleeping well." "I'll get there." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Just need time to believe this is permanent." "It is." "You say that now. Wait until you've lived with me for a month and realized I'm impossible." "I already know you're impossible. That's not news." "Fair." They stayed like that for a while, her hand stilling on a tube of cadmium red, his arms solid and warm around her middle. Outside, the city hummed its endless song. Inside, for the first time in months, something close to peace settled over them. Marco showed up the next morning with coffee and a folder thick enough to be a novel. "Please tell me that's not what I think it is," Lucian said, eyeing the folder. "Depends. What do you think it is?" "Problems." "Then yes, it's exactly what you think it is." Marco dropped into a chair, looking exhausted. "Vincent's people are scattering. Some are trying to take over his territory. Others are looking for new employers. And a few—" He paused. "A few are looking for revenge." Nora's stomach dropped. She'd been making breakfast, pretending she wasn't listening. Now she set down the spatula and turned around. How many? Lucian asked, his voice flat. 3 that we know of. Carlo, Vincent's cousin, Dimitri, his enforcer, and someone new, street name Blade. We don't have a real identity yet. Wonderful. Lucian rubbed his face. And they're coming after me. After both of you, probably. You took down their boss. She's the reason you did it. You do the math. I thought this was over, Nora said quietly. Both men looked at her. It is over, Lucian said. Vincent's locked up. This is just cleanup. Cleanup that wants us dead. Cleanup that wants me dead. You're staying here, I'll handle it. Here we go again. She crossed her arms. We've been through this, Lucian. You don't get to shut me out every time something dangerous happens. This is different. How? Because Vincent was smart, calculated. These people are desperate. Desperate people make mistakes, and I won't risk you being collateral damage. So your plan is what? Lock me in the penthouse until you've hunted down every person who might have a grudge? If that's what it takes. She stared at him. You're serious? Completely. I'm not a prisoner. I'm not treating you like one. I'm keeping you safe. By controlling where I go and what I do. How is that different? Marco stood up. I'm going to grab more coffee and let you two work this out. Sit down, Lucian said without looking at him. You're part of this conversation. Marco sat back down, looking deeply uncomfortable. Nora took a breath, trying to find calm she didn't feel. I understand you're scared. I'm scared too, but you can't protect me by building walls around me. That's not a life. It's a temporary life, until the threat's neutralized. And when's that? A week? A month? A year? At what point do we actually get to live instead of just surviving? When I know you're safe, I'll never be completely safe. Not as long as I'm with you. We both know that. She stepped closer. So either you accept that I'm choosing this risk, or you let me go. But you don't get to keep me and hide me. That's not love. That's fear. His jaw clenched. She could see him wrestling with it, the need to protect her warring with the knowledge that she was right. I hate this, he said finally. I know. If something happens to you, it won't. You can't promise that. Neither can you. She took his hand. But we can be smart. We can be careful. And we can face it together instead of you trying to shoulder everything alone. He looked at Marco. Tell her this is insane. I think you're both insane, Marco said. But she has a point. Locking her up makes her a sitting target. At least if she's mobile, she's harder to pin down. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm on the side of not getting killed, which means being realistic about what we're up against. Lucian closed his eyes, his hand tightening around Nora's. When he opened them again, he looked tired, but resigned. Fine, but we do this my way. You don't go anywhere without security. You check in every 2 hours, and if I say run, you run. No questions. No arguments. Deal. I mean it, Nora. I know. She pulled him down and kissed him. Thank you for not being completely impossible. Day's not over yet. Marco cleared his throat. If you two are done, we need to talk strategy. They spent the next 3 hours going over security protocols. Marco had already assigned a rotating team of guards, installed additional cameras, and set up a safe room in the penthouse that could withstand a small army. Lucian added more, his mind working through contingencies that made Nora's head spin. You've done this before, she said when Marco finally left. Done what? Prepared for war. This isn't war. War is organized. This is pest control. You say that like it's better. It is. Wars are unpredictable. Pests are just annoying. He pulled her onto his lap. Stop worrying. You're literally planning for someone to breach the penthouse. I'm planning for every possibility. That's different. Is it? Yes. He tucked her hair behind her ear. I won't let anything happen to you. What about you? What about me? Who's protecting you while you're busy protecting me? His mouth curved. I've been taking care of myself for a long time. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. She wanted to argue, wanted to make him promise he'd be careful, that he wouldn't take unnecessary risks, that he'd value his own life as much as he valued hers. But she knew Lucian well enough by now to recognize a losing battle. I love you, she said instead. I know. He kissed her forehead. I love you too. That's why I'm being impossible. At least you admit it. I'm self-aware. Doesn't mean I'm changing. I wouldn't want you to. That was a lie, but a kind one. She absolutely wanted him to change, wanted him to trust her more, control less, believe that she was strong enough to handle his world. But she also knew change took time. And after everything they'd been through, time was the one thing they finally had. The first attempt came 5 days later. Nora was at a gallery opening with 2 of Marco's men flanking her like expensive bookends. Lucian had wanted to come, but he'd had a meeting with federal prosecutors about testifying against Vincent. So she'd gone alone, determined to prove she could handle normal life. The gallery was crowded, full of people who talked too loud about art they didn't understand. She'd been nursing the same glass of wine for an hour, making polite conversation with a curator who kept touching her arm when she saw him. Tall, dark hair, scar across his left cheekbone, standing by the exit, watching her with eyes that were too focused, too intent. Carlo. She recognized him from the photos Marco had shown her. Her heart kicked into overdrive. She looked for her security team. One was across the room talking to someone. The other was checking his phone. Carlo started moving toward her. She set down her wine glass, trying to look casual, and walked quickly toward the bathroom. The curator called after her. She ignored him. The bathroom was empty. She locked herself in a stall, pulled out her phone, dialed Marco. "What's wrong?" he answered immediately. "Carlo's here at the gallery." "Where are your guys?" "I don't know. I lost them in the crowd." "Stay in the bathroom. Lock the door. I'm sending backup." "How long?" 5 minutes. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. She could hear people moving in the gallery outside, laughter and conversation and the clink of glasses. Normal sounds, nothing that suggested danger. Then the bathroom door opened. "Nora?" A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. She stayed quiet. "I know you're in here. Carlo sent me. He just wants to talk." "Tell Carlo to go to hell," Nora said. "That's not very friendly." "I'm not feeling friendly." Footsteps. Closer. The woman was checking stalls. Nora looked around frantically. No windows. One exit. She was trapped. The stall door shook as someone tested it. "Come out, or I come in." "Security's on the way." "Then we better make this quick." The door crashed open. The woman was young, maybe 30, with dead eyes and a gun in her hand. "Out. Now." Nora's hands shook. "You're not going to shoot me in a public bathroom." "You want to test that theory?" She didn't. She walked out of the stall, keeping her hands visible. "Carlo just wants to talk," the woman repeated. "So we're going to walk out of here nice and calm, and you're going to get in his car. And if I refuse? Then I shoot you here, and we tell everyone it was self-defense. Your choice." The bathroom door burst open. One of Marco's men, gun drawn. "Step away from her." The woman spun, fired. The shot went wide. Marco's man returned fire. The woman dropped. Nora's ears rang. Her whole body shook. The guard grabbed her arm, pulled her toward the exit. "We need to move. Now." They ran through the gallery. People were screaming. Someone had called the police. Sirens wailed in the distance. Carlo was gone. They got her into a car. Marco was already there, his face grim. "You okay?" he asked. "Define okay." "Not shot, not kidnapped." "Then yeah, I'm fantastic." He pulled out his phone, dialed. "We have a problem." Lucian's voice came through the speaker, sharp with fear. "Is she hurt?" "She's fine." But Carlo made a move. He's escalating. "Where are you?" "Taking her to the safe house." "No, bring her to me." "Lucian, bring her to me now." Marco met Nora's eyes. She nodded. 20 minutes later, they pulled up outside a building she didn't recognize. Lucian was waiting on the street, flanked by 4 men she'd never seen before. He yanked open the car door before it fully stopped, pulled her out, ran his hands over her like he was checking for injuries. "I'm fine," she said. "You're shaking." "Someone just tried to kidnap me." "I'm allowed to shake." He pulled her against his chest, his arms so tight she could barely breathe. "This ends tonight." "What are you talking about?" "Carlo, Dmitri. Everyone on Vincent's payroll who thinks they can touch you. It ends tonight." She pulled back to look at him. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done 5 days ago." "Lucian, I'm not letting you live like this, scared, looking over your shoulder, wondering when the next attempt is coming." "So what? You're going to hunt them down? Kill them? If that's what it takes. That's not who you are anymore. You said you wanted out. You said you wanted to build something different. I did. I do. But not at the cost of your life. And what about your life? What happens when you cross that line and can't come back? He cupped her face in his hands. I crossed that line 30 years ago. The only difference now is I have something worth protecting. I won't let you become a monster for me. Too late. I've always been a monster. You just made me want to be a better one. He kissed her forehead. But better doesn't mean soft, and it sure as hell doesn't mean letting people hunt you. Marco cleared his throat. We need to move. This location isn't secure. Lucian nodded, took Nora's hand, and led her inside. The building was abandoned, or looked like it, but inside was a command center that would have made the FBI jealous. Computers, monitors, maps with marked locations, a dozen people working phones and keyboards. What is this? Nora asked. Insurance, Lucian said. We've been tracking Vincent's people since he went down. Every location, every contact, every vulnerability. You've been planning this the whole time. I've been preparing for it. There's a difference. One of the techs called out, Got a hit on Dimitri. He's at a club on 5th. Same one he hits every Thursday. Predictable, Lucian muttered. He looked at Marco. Grab him. Bring him here. What about Carlo? I'll handle Carlo personally. Bad idea. Noted. Do it anyway. Marco looked like he wanted to argue. Then he nodded and left. Nora grabbed Lucian's arm. What are you going to do to them? Give them a choice. Walk away and disappear, or face consequences they won't survive. That's not a choice. That's a threat. That's reality. He turned to face her fully. I know you want to believe I can solve this with words and negotiations. But these people don't speak that language. They speak violence and fear, and right now I need them to fear me more than they hate me. There has to be another way. There isn't, and deep down you know that. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong. But she'd seen Carlo's eyes in those photos, had heard the casual way that woman talked about shooting her. These weren't people who'd respond to reason. I hate this, she said. I know, but I need you to trust me. I do trust you. I just don't trust what this world turns you into. It doesn't turn me into anything. This is who I've always been. You're just seeing it clearly for the first time. That's not true, isn't it? He pulled her close. I've killed people, Nora. Ordered deaths, destroyed lives. The only thing that's changed is now I have a reason to want to be different. But wanting and being are two different things. Then become different, please, before this destroys you. It won't destroy me, but it might save you. He kissed her, soft and desperate. Let me do this. Let me end it. Then we can talk about who I'm going to be. She didn't have a choice. Not really. So she nodded and let him go and tried not to think about what he was about to do. 2 hours later, Marco's team brought Dimitri in. He was massive, 6'5" and solid muscle, with a face that looked like it had been rebuilt several times. They'd cuffed him to a chair in the center of the room, and he sat there looking bored. Moretti, he said when Lucian approached. Figured you'd come for me eventually. Smart man. Not smart enough to run, apparently. Running wouldn't have helped. I'd have found you. Dimitri shrugged. So what now? You beat information out of me? Kill me? Make an example? I'm giving you a choice. Lucian's voice was calm. Leave the city. Tonight. Change your name. Start over somewhere Vincent's reach doesn't extend. Do that, and you live. And if I refuse? Then you don't. Dimitri laughed. That simple? That's simple. What about loyalty? Vincent took care of me for 15 years. Vincent's locked up for the rest of his life. Loyalty to a dead regime is just stupidity. Maybe. Or maybe it's honor. There's no honor in dying for a cause that's already lost. Dimitri studied him for a long moment. You really going soft? All because of some girl? Lucian's expression didn't change. She's not some girl. She's the reason I'm giving you this choice instead of just ending you. That's love? Sounds like weakness. Call it what you want. But the offer stands. Leave or die. You have 10 seconds to decide. You're bluffing. 1. You need me to testify. 2. The feds will protect me. 3. Dimitri's face went pale. You're serious. 4. Fine, I'll leave. Tonight. You'll never see me again. Lucian nodded to Marco, who uncuffed him. If I even hear a rumor you're still in the state, Lucian said quietly, I'll finish this conversation differently. Understood? Understood. They let him go. Nora watched from the shadows, her stomach churning. 1 down, Marco said. 1 down, Lucian echoed. Carlo was harder to find. He'd gone to ground after the gallery, ditched his phone, abandoned his usual haunts. It took Marco's people 3 days to track him to a motel outside the city limits. Lucian went alone. Nora begged him not to. Marco argued it was suicide. But Lucian was done waiting, done planning, done letting fear dictate his life. I'll be back in 3 hours, he told Nora, kissing her goodbye at the door of the penthouse. What if you're not? Then Marco knows what to do. That's not comforting. It's realistic. He cupped her face. I love you, and I'm coming back. Then he left. The 3 hours stretched into 4, then 5. Nora paced the penthouse, her phone clutched in her hand, calling him every 15 minutes and getting voicemail. Marco sat on the couch, equally tense, equally silent. When Lucian finally walked through the door at hour 6, he was bloody. Nora ran to him. What happened? It's handled. His voice was flat, empty. Are you hurt? Not my blood. She pulled back to look at him. His eyes were distant, somewhere else entirely. Lucian, I need a shower. He walked past her into the bathroom. She heard the water start, then silence. Marco stood. I'll give you two some space. What happened? Nora asked. He did what needed doing. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you. Marco headed for the door. Be patient with him. This part, the violence, it takes something from him every time. Then he left. Nora found Lucian in the shower, fully dressed, sitting on the floor under the spray. She turned off the water, knelt beside him. Talk to me, she said. He didn't take the deal. Carlo? He wanted revenge more than he wanted his life. So I gave him what he wanted. She didn't ask for details, didn't want them. Come on, she said gently. Let's get you out of these clothes. She helped him strip, dried him off, got him into bed. He lay there staring at the ceiling like he was seeing ghosts. I'm a monster, he said quietly. No, you're not. I killed a man tonight, in cold blood, because he wouldn't walk away. You killed a man who tried to kidnap me, who would have hurt me if he'd succeeded. That doesn't make it right. Maybe not, but it makes it necessary. He finally looked at her. How are you so calm about this? Because I know who you are, and I know you didn't want to do it. That doesn't change the fact that I did. No, but it changes what it means. She took his hand. You're not a monster, Lucian. Monsters don't feel guilty. They don't lose sleep. They don't shower with their clothes on because they can't stand the blood. You're trying to make me feel better about murder. I'm trying to make you see that you're more than the worst thing you've ever done. He pulled her close, buried his face in her neck. I don't deserve you. We've established that, but you're stuck with me anyway. His laugh was broken and rough and perfect. They lay there in the dark, tangled together, and Nora felt the weight of what he'd done settle over them both. She knew it would leave scars, knew he'd carry this with him, add it to the collection of ghosts he already lived with. But she also knew he'd done it for her, and that had to mean something. The next morning, Blade, the last name on their list, disappeared. Not dead, not arrested, just gone, like he'd never existed. He got smart, Marco said, realized going after you wasn't worth dying for. Or he's waiting, Lucian said, always the optimist. I'm realistic. Same thing, different packaging. But weeks passed, and Blade didn't resurface. The threat level dropped. The security team reduced shifts. Life started to feel almost normal. Lucian threw himself into transitioning his businesses, sold off the illegal operations to contacts who could handle them without bloodshed, invested heavily in real estate and tech startups, started attending city council meetings about urban development. You're becoming respectable, Nora teased one night, watching him review architectural plans. I'm becoming boring. Never boring, just different. Is that good? It's good. He looked up at her, something vulnerable in his eyes. I'm trying to be the man you think I am. You already are that man. You're just letting other people see it now. I killed someone 3 weeks ago. I know. And you still think I'm good? I think you're trying to be better. That's good enough. He set down the plans, pulled her into his lap. I love you. I know. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. You don't have to deserve me. You just have to choose me. Every day, he said, for the rest of my life. She kissed him, and it tasted like promises they both intended to keep. 6 months after Carlo died in that motel, Nora sold her first major piece to a collector in Boston for more money than she'd made in the previous 2 years combined. The painting was dark, violent in its honesty. A woman standing in rain with fire behind her, neither running toward safety nor away from danger, just standing there deciding which direction her life would go. The collector called it brave. Nora called it Tuesday. You're not even a little bit excited? Lucian asked, reading the email over her shoulder. I'm excited. I'm just not surprised. That's very confident of you. I'm dating a man who taught me confidence looks like refusing to apologize for taking up space. She turned in her chair to look at him. You created a monster. The best kind. He kissed the top of her head. We're celebrating. Pick a restaurant. The Italian place where we met. Really? Really? I want to go back to where this started and remember what it felt like before everything got complicated. His expression softened. It was always complicated. We just didn't know it yet. They went that Friday, and the owner recognized Lucian immediately, greeted him like family, then saw Nora and smiled like he'd been waiting for this moment. You brought her back, he said. I did. Good. She looked too sad last time. Better now. The meal was perfect. The wine was better. And halfway through dessert, Lucian's phone rang. He ignored it the first 2 times. On the third, he checked the screen and his face went carefully blank. I need to take this, he said. Everything okay? Probably. Give me 2 minutes. He stepped outside. Nora watched through the window as he paced, talked, stopped moving entirely for 5 seconds, then came back inside looking like someone had gut-punched him. What's wrong? She asked immediately. Vincent's dead. The words hung there, impossible and final. What? Heart attack, this morning. The prison just called Marco. He wanted me to know before it hit the news. Nora didn't know what to feel. Relief? Guilt? Something else entirely? Are you okay? She asked. Lucian sat down slowly. I don't know. I spent 30 years preparing for the day I'd have to kill him myself, and he just died. Like a normal person. Heart failure. Maybe that's better. Is it? I don't get closure. Don't get to look him in the eye one last time and know it's finished. It is finished. He's gone. You're free. Am I? He looked at her, and she saw the weight of decades in his eyes. He took Elena from me. Tried to take you. Destroyed lives for sport. And he gets to die peacefully in his sleep? We don't know it was peaceful. It was more than he deserved. She reached across the table, took his hand. You're right. It was. But you don't get to choose how other people's stories end. Only your own. What if I wanted him to suffer? Then you're human. But wanting it and needing it are different things. He was quiet for a long time, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. I hated him for so long it became part of who I was, he said finally. I don't know how to let that go. Then don't. Not all at once. Just start by acknowledging he can't hurt anyone else, including you. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, it's just necessary. They finished dinner in silence, both of them processing what Vincent's death meant. When they got home, Lucian poured himself 3 fingers of scotch and stood by the window looking out at the city. Come to bed, Nora said after an hour. Not yet. Lucian, I need to sit with this, figure out what I'm supposed to feel. You're supposed to feel however you feel. There's no right answer. That's not helpful. I know, but it's true. She left him there and went to bed alone, and at some point in the night he finally joined her, curling around her like she was the only solid thing in the world. The next morning, Marco showed up with paperwork. Vincent's lawyer wants to meet with you, he said. Lucian looked up from his coffee. Why? He left you something in his will. That's impossible. Apparently not. Marco slid a folder across the table. He left you a letter and a property deed. Nora watched Lucian open the folder with hands that weren't quite steady. He read the letter in silence, his face unreadable. Then he set it down and laughed, sharp and bitter. "What does it say?" she asked. "He's giving me the restaurant where I met Elena, the one our father used to take us to when we were kids." He pushed the letter toward her. "Read it." She picked it up. The handwriting was cramped, angry. "Moretti, by the time you read this, I'll be dead. Heart, probably. Doctor says I've got 6 months if I'm lucky. I'm writing this because I want you to know I won. Not in the way I planned, but I still won. I took your sister. I took your peace. I took 30 years of your life and made you into exactly what I wanted. Someone as ruthless and broken as me. You think putting me in prison changes that? You're still the monster I created. But here's the thing. I'm giving you the restaurant because I know it'll torture you. Every time you walk past it, you'll remember her. Remember what you lost. Remember that you couldn't save her. Enjoy your victory, Moretti. It tastes like ashes, doesn't it?" Nora set the letter down carefully. "He's trying to hurt you even from the grave." "He succeeded." "No, he didn't." She met Lucian's eyes. "Because you're not the monster he thinks you are. And you get to decide what that restaurant means. It means I failed. It means you loved someone enough to grieve her for 12 years. That's not weakness. That's proof you're still human." Marco cleared his throat. "For what it's worth, the property's worth about $4 million. You could sell it, never think about it again." "Or," Lucian asked, "or you could burn it down. Literally or metaphorically, your call." Lucian picked up the deed, stared at it like it might bite him. "I need to see it," he said. They went that afternoon, just the two of them. The restaurant was closed, had been for years. Windows were boarded up. The sign was faded but still readable. Lucian stood on the sidewalk for 5 minutes without moving. "You want to go in?" Nora asked. "No, yes, I don't know." "We can leave. I need to see it." He used a key from the deed packet to unlock the front door. Inside, everything was exactly as it had been. Tables covered in dust, chairs stacked in corners, the kitchen visible through a service window, frozen in time. "We used to sit at that table." Lucian pointed to one by the window. "Elena always ordered pasta with too much cheese. Our father would tell her she'd get fat. She'd order extra cheese just to spite him." "She sounds like someone I would have liked." "You would have. She was—" His voice cracked. "She was better than all of us." Nora took his hand. "Let him stand there and remember. Vincent wanted this to destroy you," she said quietly. "Don't let him have that. Take this place and make it something Elena would have loved. Make it proof that she mattered more than his hate." "Like what?" "I don't know. A community center, an art gallery, a place where people who need a second chance can find one." She squeezed his hand. "You spent 30 years letting hate define you. What if you spent the next 30 letting love do it instead?" He looked at her and something shifted in his expression. Not quite hope, but close enough. "You really think I can do that?" "I know you can. The question is whether you want to." He pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. "I want to try." "Then try." They left the restaurant and didn't look back. 3 months later, they broke ground on the renovation. Lucian hired architects who specialized in adaptive reuse, designers who understood the difference between honoring history and being trapped by it. He kept the original facade but gutted everything else, transforming the space into something entirely new. The Elena Moretti Center opened 8 months after that. Art studios on the first floor, mentorship programs on the second, a small gallery where local artists could show their work without the barrier of expensive applications or connections. The opening night was chaos. People everywhere, wine flowing, Nora's paintings on the walls alongside a dozen other artists Lucian had quietly funded. He stood in the center of it all, looking overwhelmed and proud and terrified. "You did it," Marco said, appearing at his elbow with champagne. "We did it. Don't be modest. This was your idea." "Nora's idea. I just wrote the checks." "You did more than that?" Marco clinched his glass against Lucian's. "Elena would be proud." Lucian's throat worked. "You think so?" "I know so." Nora found him an hour later standing in front of a photograph of Elena that hung in the entryway. young, maybe 20, laughing at something off camera. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi. You okay?" "Yeah, I wish she could see this." "Maybe she can." "You don't believe that." "No, but you might, and that's what matters." He pulled her against his side. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing something in me worth saving, for refusing to let me give up, for making me believe I could be more than what I was." "You were always more. You just needed permission to show it." "I love you." "I know. You tell me every day." "I'll tell you every day for the rest of my life." "Promise?" "Promise." They stood there watching people engage with art, with hope, with possibility. And for the first time in longer than Nora could remember, the future felt like something to look forward to instead of something to survive. The year that followed was the best and hardest of both their lives. Lucian stepped away from the last of his questionable business dealings, which meant losing income and respect from people who'd known him as someone dangerous. He struggled with it more than Nora expected, kept trying to prove he was still powerful, still relevant, still someone to be feared. "You don't need their fear anymore," she told him one night after he'd come home furious about a deal that had fallen through. "I spent 40 years building a reputation. It's not easy to just walk away from that. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's necessary." "What if I'm nothing without it?" "Then you figure out who you are with something better." "And if there's nothing better?" "There is. You're just scared to find it." He hated that she was right, hated that she could see through his anger to the fear underneath. But he also loved her for it, for refusing to let him hide. He started therapy 3 weeks later, not because Nora demanded it, but because he woke up one morning and realized he was 61 years old and still fighting battles that didn't matter anymore. The therapist was a woman in her 50s who'd worked with former gang members and didn't flinch when Lucian described his past. "You spent your whole life building armor," she said during their third session. "Now you're trying to take it off, and you're discovering you don't know who you are without it. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be true. So what do I do?" "You figure out who you want to be, not who you were or who people expect you to be, who you actually want to be." It sounded simple. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done. But slowly, painfully, he started to figure it out. Started saying no to meetings that felt wrong. Started investing in projects that excited him instead of ones that paid the most. Started spending mornings at the center talking to kids who reminded him of himself at 15, angry, lost, convinced the world had already decided they didn't matter. "You're good at this," Nora said, watching him work with a teenager who'd been kicked out of 3 schools. "At what?" "Giving people hope." "I'm just talking to him." "You're showing him someone cared enough to see past the anger. That matters more than you know." He looked at her, something vulnerable in his expression. "You think I'm actually helping?" "I know you are." "What if it's not enough?" "It doesn't have to be everything. It just has to be something." That became his mantra. It doesn't have to be everything, just something. Small steps, small changes, small victories that added up to a life he was starting to recognize as his own. Nora's career exploded in the meantime. Her work started appearing in galleries across the country, collectors bidding against each other for pieces that captured pain and healing with equal honesty. She could have moved to New York, to LA, to anywhere that would have paid her more attention. She stayed. "Why?" Lucian asked one night. "You could have everything." "I do have everything. It's right here. I'm not enough to build a career on. You're not my career, you're my life. There's a difference." Most people would choose the career. I'm not most people. And honestly, if you haven't figured that out by now, you're not paying attention. He smiled despite himself. "You're impossible." I learned from the best. They got engaged on a Tuesday. No big production, no planned moment. They were making dinner. She was chopping vegetables while he attempted to follow a recipe. And he just stopped in the middle of measuring flour and said it. "Marry me." She looked up. "What?" "Marry me. I know I'm too old and too damaged and too much work. I know you could do better, but I love you, and I want to spend whatever time I have left making you happy. So marry me." She set down the knife. "That was possibly the worst proposal I've ever heard." "Is that a no?" "It's a yes, you idiot. It's always been yes." He kissed her with flour-covered hands, and she laughed against his mouth, and neither of them cared that they were making a mess. They got married 4 months later in the center's gallery, surrounded by art and friends and people whose lives they'd touched. Marco stood as best man, giving a speech that made everyone cry. Nora wore a dress she'd found in a vintage shop, nothing fancy, just something that felt right. Lucian wore a suit and cried through the entire ceremony. "You okay?" she asked as they stood there, hands joined. "I'm perfect. I never thought I'd get this." "Get what?" "A second chance. A real life. You." "Well, you do. All of it. So stop crying and kiss me already." He did, and the room erupted in applause that felt like celebration and relief and hope, all tangled together. The reception was chaos in the best way, music and dancing and too much wine. Lucian's old associates stood next to artists and community organizers, all of them finding common ground in the simple fact that they cared about the same two people. Near midnight, Nora found Lucian standing outside, looking up at the sky. "Escaping your own wedding?" she asked. "Just needed air." "Liar. You're thinking about her." He didn't deny it. "I wish she could have been here." "Me too." "You would have liked her." "I already do. She raised a brother who turned into someone worth loving. That takes something special." He pulled her close, and they stood there in the dark, married and happy, and still figuring out what forever actually meant. A year later, Nora got pregnant. They hadn't been trying, hadn't really discussed it beyond abstract conversations about possibility. But the test came back positive, and suddenly the future they'd been building became shockingly real. "I'm 63, Lucian said, staring at the test like it might be lying. "I'm aware. I'll be 80 when this kid graduates high school. Also aware. I don't know if I can do this. Too late, already happening." He looked up at her, fear and wonder fighting for dominance on his face. "I'm terrified." "Good. So am I. We can be terrified together. What if I'm a terrible father? What if you're a great one? I've never even held a baby. Neither have I. We'll figure it out." He pulled her into his lap, his hand settling on her still flat stomach. "A baby. We're having a baby." "We are. I love you." "I know. I'm going to be impossible through this entire pregnancy. I'm counting on it." He was. Impossible and devoted and constantly hovering. He read every book on pregnancy, attended every appointment, drove Nora insane with his concern. "I'm not fragile," she said for the 100th time. "I know." "Then stop treating me like I might break. I'm not—" "You reorganized my entire studio because you thought I was reaching too high for a paintbrush." The ladder was unstable. "The ladder was fine. You're panicking." "I'm not panicking." "Lucian," he sighed, ran a hand through his hair. "Fine, I'm panicking. I'm 63 years old, and I'm about to be responsible for a tiny human who's going to depend on me not to mess them up. Of course I'm panicking." "You're not going to mess them up. How do you know?" "Because you already spent years learning from your mistakes. This kid gets the best version of you, not the broken one." "I'm still broken." "We're all broken. The trick is being broken in interesting ways." He smiled despite himself. "You're ridiculous. And you love me for it." "I really do." Their daughter was born on a rainy October morning, small and loud and perfect. Lucian cried the entire time, held her with shaking hands, looked at Nora like she'd just given him the universe. "We need a name," Nora said. "Elena," he said immediately. "You sure?" "I'm sure. She deserves to be remembered." So Elena Rose Moretti entered the world, screaming and alive, and proof that sometimes the best things come from the worst beginnings. Watching Lucian with their daughter was like watching someone discover magic. He was patient and gentle and completely devoted, spending hours just holding her, learning her sounds, figuring out what each cry meant. "You're a natural," Nora said one night, finding him in the nursery at 3 a.m. "I'm terrified I'm going to drop her." "You're not going to drop her. She's so small. She's perfect, just like her dad." "I'm not perfect." "No, but you're hers. And that's better." He looked down at Elena, sleeping peacefully against his chest. "I spent 60 years thinking I was too damaged to deserve this. And now you know better. Now I know I was wrong about everything, about who I was, about what I deserved. about what love actually means. And what does it mean? It means choosing every day to be better than you were yesterday. It means building something worth protecting. It means, he looked at Nora, it means you and her, and this life we've made together. She crossed the room, kissed him softly. I love you. I love you too, both of you, more than I knew was possible. 5 years passed like water. Elena grew into a stubborn, brilliant, fearless kid who had her mother's talent and her father's determination. The center expanded, adding programs for music and dance and theater. Lucian's legitimate businesses thrived, and slowly, carefully, they built a life that felt less like survival and more like actually living. But age caught up with Lucian faster than either of them wanted to admit. His joints ached, his energy flagged. He started forgetting small things, where he put his keys, what day it was, names of people he'd known for decades. It's normal, the doctor said. You're almost 70. Some memory loss is expected. But it scared him. Scared him more than Vincent ever had. Because he'd spent so long fighting external enemies that he didn't know how to fight the one inside his own head. What if I forget? He asked Nora one night. Forget what? This. You, Elena. Everything that matters. Then I'll remind you. What if you can't? Then I'll love you anyway, through whatever comes. That's not fair to you. It's not about fair, it's about choice. And I choose you, every version of you, even the one that might forget. He pulled her close, held on like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. You deserve everything you have. You fought for it, earned it, built it with your own hands. I'm scared. I know. So am I. But we've been scared before. We got through it then. We'll get through it now. She was right, they did. But it changed things, made them more deliberate about time, about memory, about making sure Elena knew her father while he could still tell her who he was. They took trips, made videos, wrote letters Elena would read when she was older, built a library of moments to hold on to when the inevitable happened. And through it all, Lucian kept working, kept showing up at the center, kept proving that redemption wasn't a destination but a daily practice. On his 70th birthday, the center threw him a party. Hundreds of people showed up, artists he'd funded, kids he'd mentored, friends who'd watched him transform from someone dangerous into someone kind. Marco gave a speech that made everyone cry. Elena sang Happy Birthday off-key, and Nora stood beside him, watching him take in all the lives he'd touched, all the good he'd created. You did it, she whispered. Did what? Became the man you wanted to be. He looked around at the faces filling the gallery, at the art on the walls, at his daughter dancing with Marco, at his wife beside him. I had help, he said. We all need help. The trick is accepting it. He pulled her close, kissed her temple. Thank you. For what? For seeing something worth saving, for refusing to give up, for loving me when I didn't know how to love myself. That's what love is, seeing someone whole even when they only show you pieces. You're a philosopher now. I'm a wife. It's basically the same thing. He laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine and full of a joy he'd never expected to feel. That night, after everyone left, they sat on the gallery floor surrounded by empty wine glasses and half-eaten cake. Elena was asleep upstairs in Marco's office. The building was quiet. Tell me something true, Nora said. Like what? Like what you're thinking right now. I'm thinking I wasted 40 years being afraid. Afraid to be vulnerable. Afraid to want things. Afraid to believe I deserved happiness. He took her hand, and then you walked into my life soaking wet and furious, and everything changed. I was a mess. You were perfect. You just didn't know it yet. I'm still a mess. So am I. But we're a mess together. And that makes it art. She smiled. That's very poetic for someone who claims not to understand art. I understand you. That's enough. They sat there in the dark, holding hands, and Nora thought about the journey that had brought them here. The pain, the fear, the violence that almost destroyed them, and the love that saved them instead. Because that's what nobody tells you about second chances. They don't erase the past. They don't make everything easy. They just give you the opportunity to build something better on top of the ruins. And sometimes, if you're lucky and brave and willing to do the work, that something better becomes everything you never knew you needed. Lucian Moretti spent 40 years being a monster, and he spent the last 10 proving that monsters can change if they find the right reason. His reason was a woman who refused to run, who saw darkness and chose to stay, who believed that love wasn't about fixing broken things, but about building something new from the pieces. And maybe that's the real lesson. That redemption isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming honest, about owning your past while refusing to let it own you, about choosing every single day to be better than you were, even when it's hard, even when you fail, even when the world tells you you're too far gone to save. Because nobody's too far gone. Not really. They just need someone to prove it. Nora proved it to Lucian, and he spent the rest of his life proving it to everyone else. That's not a happy ending. It's something better. It's a real one.